They say success is the best revenge, but silence is deadly. You're about to hear the story of Carter and Isabella. Carter thought he was the main character, the man who traded his boring wife for a shiny new life, flashing his promotion and his mistress all over Instagram. He thought Isabella was weak because she didn't fight back when he handed her the divorce papers. He was wrong. While he was busy bragging, she was busy signing documents that would make his entire net worth look like pocket change. This isn't just a breakup story. It's a masterclass in quiet power. Buckle up. You won't believe who she really was. The atmosphere inside Le Bernardin was stiflingly perfect. The clinking of crystal glasses and the low hum of expensive conversation usually comforted Carter, but tonight he was vibrating with a different kind of energy. He checked his reflection in the back of a spoon. Jawline sharp hair swept back the new tailored Armani suit sitting flawlessly on his shoulders. He looked like a man who had won. Across the table sat Isabella. She was wearing the same navy dress she had worn to his company's Christmas party 3 years ago. Her brown hair was pulled back in a sensible messy bun, and she was reading the menu with that intense, furrowed brow that used to make Carter smile, but now just irritated him. She looked plain, dull, an anchor dragging behind a speedboat. "Isabella," Carter said, his voice dropping an octave to that serious executive tone he'd been practicing since his promotion to regional VP at Stratton Oakmont Logistics last week. She looked up, her hazel eyes calm behind her reading glasses. "Yes, Carter, you've been tapping your foot for 10 minutes. Is something wrong? Not wrong. Right. Finally right." Carter exhaled, reaching into his inner jacket pocket. He didn't pull out a jewelry box. He pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope. He slid it across the white tablecloth, right past the bread basket. "I think we both know this has been coming." Isabella didn't touch the envelope. She just stared at it. "Divorce papers." "It's not working, Izzy," Carter said, leaning back, signaling the waiter for a bottle of sparkling water, Pellegrino specifically. "Look at us. I'm evolving. I'm moving into high-stakes corporate management. I need to be at galas, networking events, flying to Dubai and London. And you're happy managing that little bookstore and knitting on weekends." "I like the bookstore," Isabella said softly. "And we were happy, Carter. You were happy when we struggled to pay rent in Queens. You were happy when I edited your resume 4 times to get you into Stratton." "That was then." Carter dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "I've outgrown that life. And frankly, I need a partner who reflects my trajectory. Someone with ambition. Someone who looks the part." As if on cue, a vibration buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. Chloe. A photo of a blonde woman in a bikini popped up. He quickly silenced it, but he saw Isabella's eyes flicker to the phone. She knew. "Is it Chloe?" Isabella asked. Her voice didn't crack. There were no tears. Carter blinked, caught off guard by her lack of emotion. "You know, you're not exactly subtle, Carter. The late nights, the smell of Baccarat Rouge, 540 on your shirts. It's an expensive perfume for a logistics manager's assistant, isn't it?" Carter flushed, anger spiking. He hated when she did that, analyzed things so calmly. "She understands me, Isabella. She's young, she's hungry for life. She fits the world I'm entering. Look, I'm being generous. You keep the Honda. I'll give you $20,000 cash. You move out of the penthouse by Monday. I'm keeping the lease." It was a brutal, lowball offer. They had built their life together for 7 years. Isabella finally reached out and took the envelope. She opened it, scanning the legal jargon. She picked up a pen from the table. "You're not going to fight it?" Carter asked, frowning. He had prepared a whole speech about how she couldn't afford a lawyer, how he would crush her in court. "No," Isabella said, signing her name with a flourish, "Isabella A. Giada. If you want to leave Carter, I won't stop you. But remember this moment. You are choosing this." "I'm choosing happiness," he scoffed, snatching the papers back as soon as she finished. "I'm choosing a future." "Okay." She stood up, smoothing down her navy dress. "I'll have my things out by noon tomorrow. Enjoy your dinner, Carter. I already paid the bill on my way in. Consider it a parting gift." She walked out of the restaurant, head high. Carter sat there stunned for a second, then checked the bill the waiter handed him. Paid in full. How did she afford a $400 dinner? She must have dipped into her savings. He shook his head, laughing. Poor girl, he thought. She still thinks buying me dinner will make me stay. He texted Chloe. "It's done." She signed. "I'm all yours, baby." He had no idea that the signature on those papers, Giada, was the only thing protecting him from a reality he wasn't ready to face. 3 months later, Carter's life looked like a Pinterest board for the nouveau riche. He had upgraded the lease on the penthouse to the corner unit with the view of Central Park. He leased a Porsche Cayenne white with red leather interior. And of course there was Chloe. Chloe was everything Isabella wasn't. Loud, demanding, and obsessed with appearances. She made Carter take photos of everything, their espresso martinis, their matching designer, watches her shopping bags from Fifth Avenue. "Babe, move a little to the left, the light is better," Chloe directed him one Tuesday evening as they sat in the VIP section of a rooftop bar in Manhattan. Carter complied, snapping the photo. He posted it immediately with the caption, "New levels, new devils, #grindset, #power couple." The likes poured in. His old college friends, his co-workers, even his boss, dropped a fire emoji. This was what he wanted. Validation. Envy. He felt like a king. But cracks were forming in the foundation hairline fractures he chose to ignore. The credit card bills were astronomical. Chloe's taste wasn't just expensive, it was predatory. A quick trip to Miami cost him $8,000. The new furniture for the apartment was another $15,000. His salary as a VP was good, but it wasn't unlimited. He was bleeding cash, leveraging credit to maintain the image. "Who cares?" he told himself, downing a scotch. "Bonus season is coming." Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, in a quiet, heavily guarded estate in Zurich, Switzerland, a very different meeting was taking place. Isabella sat at the head of a mahogany table that was longer than Carter's entire apartment. The room smelled of old paper and beeswax. She wasn't wearing the navy dress anymore. She was wearing a bespoke cream suit from the Row, the kind of clothing that didn't have logos because the people who wore it didn't need to advertise. Opposite her sat 3 men in grey suits. The senior partner, a man named Emerald Pennyworth of the prestigious firm Pennyworth and Associates, cleared his throat. "Ms. Giada." Emerald began his British accent, clipped and precise. "The transfer of assets is complete. The trust set up by your late grandmother, the matriarch of the Giada shipping dynasty, has fully vested now that the conditions regarding your marital status have been resolved." Isabella took a sip of tea. "Thank you, Emerald. And the clause, ironclad." Emerald nodded. "Your grandmother was very specific. The trust fund, valued at approximately $1, $2 billion, along with the controlling shares of Giada Maritime, was to be released to you only upon your 35th birthday, or upon the dissolution of your marriage to Mr. Carter Davis. She never particularly cared for him." Isabella allowed herself a small, dry smile. Grandmother had intuition. She knew he loved the idea of money more than he loved me. If he had known who I was, he never would have signed those papers. "Indeed," Emerald said, sliding a heavy black folder across the table. "You effectively lived as a ghost for 7 years, Miss Giada. A humble bookstore manager. It must have been difficult." "It was clarifying," Isabella said, her voice hardening. "I wanted to know if someone could love me, not for the Giada name. I got my answer." "And regarding Mr. Davis?" Emerald asked carefully. "He has been posting quite publicly about his financial successes. However, our forensic accountants have noted he is over-leveraged. He is attempting to secure a loan from one of our subsidiary banks, Banque Privée Edmond de Rothschild, to purchase a vacation home in the Hamptons." Isabella stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Lake Zurich. The reflection showed a woman transformed. The mousy wife was gone. The billionaire heiress had arrived. "Let him have the loan," Isabella said softly. Emerald paused, pen hovering. "Ms. Giada, approve the loan, Emerald, but attach a variable interest clause tied to the prime rate with a balloon payment due in 6 months. Give him enough rope." "To hang himself?" Emerald asked. "To see if he can swim," Isabella corrected, turning back with cold eyes. "He wanted the high life. I'm going to let him buy it, and when the bill comes due, I want to be the one holding the receipt." Back in New York, Carter's phone pinged. An email from the bank. "Congratulations, Mr. Davis. Your loan for the Hamptons estate, the Sea Glass, has been pre-approved." "Yes!" Carter shouted, pumping his fist in the air, startling Chloe, who was applying lip liner. "We got the house, babe, the Hamptons. We are officially in the big leagues." He grabbed Chloe and spun her around, laughing maniacally. He felt untouchable. He felt like a god. He didn't notice that the email came from a subsidiary of Giada Holdings International. He didn't know he had just signed a deal with the devil, and the devil was his ex-wife. 6 months later, the sheen of Carter's new life had begun to tarnish, replaced by a constant low-level panic that settled deep in his gut. The Sea Glass estate in the Hamptons was beautiful, certainly. It had the white pillars, the sprawling manicured lawn, and the proximity to the beach that screamed old money. But it also had dry rot in the guest wing and a pool filtration system that failed 3 weeks after purchase, costing $18,000 to replace. Carter sat in his glass-walled office at Stratton Oakmont, staring at a spreadsheet that was bleeding red. The balloon payment on his loan was approaching faster than he had anticipated. The variable interest rate, which had started at a manageable 4%, had inexplicably spiked to 9.5% due to market adjustments by the lender. "Knock, knock," a voice chirped from the doorway. It was Chloe. She shouldn't have been there. She wasn't an employee anymore. She was his fiancée, a title she had demanded after finding a receipt for a diamond bracelet he hadn't actually bought her. It was a corporate gift for a client's wife. "Chloe, I'm working," Carter snapped, minimizing the spreadsheet. "What are you doing here?" "I'm bored." She sighed, draping herself over the visitor's chair, her Louis Vuitton bag clanking loudly against the desk. "And we need to talk about the wedding venue. The plaza has an opening in June, but we need to put down a $50,000 deposit by Friday." $50,000, Carter choked. "Babe, we just spent $20 on the engagement party. Can't we look at something upstate?" Chloe's eyes narrowed. The playful girlfriend mask slipped, revealing the steel beneath. "Upstate, like in a barn. Carter, you're a regional VP. We are a power couple. We don't do barns. Unless you're telling me you can't afford it." That was the trigger, the challenge to his ego. "Of course I can afford it." Carter lied, his voice tight. I'm managing cash flow. I'm closing the Orion deal this week. Once that commission hits, we can buy the plaza if we want." "Good." Chloe smiled, standing up and smoothing her skirt. "Don't be late for dinner. I booked Masa. It's $800 a person, so don't be cheap with the suck." She left, leaving a cloud of perfume that made Carter nauseous. He didn't have the money for the deposit. He didn't have the money for Marsa. His credit cards were maxed out. His only lifeline was the Orion deal. It was a massive contract to handle the logistics for a European luxury goods conglomerate moving into the American market. If he landed it, his bonus would wipe out his debt and secure his position. If he failed, he was insolvent. He picked up his phone and dialed the number for the Orion representative, a man named Mr. Alistair Graves. "Mr. Davis." Graves's voice was smooth-cultured and utterly unreadable. "I was just reviewing your proposal." "It's the best bid on the table, Alistair," Carter said, injecting false confidence into his voice. "Stratton Oakmont can handle your volume better than anyone. We're ready to sign." "It is a compelling offer," Graves admitted. "However, the board of directors has requested a face-to-face meeting with the principal partner handling the account. They are particular about character. They want to ensure our values align." "Name the time and place," Carter said, loosening his tie. "I'll charm them." "Saturday night," Graves said. "The Aurora Ball at the Pear Hotel. It's a charity gala for ocean conservation. My boss will be the keynote speaker. Buy a table, it shows philanthropy. We can finalize the deal during the cocktail hour." Carter froze. The Aurora Ball was the most exclusive event of the season. A table cost $25,000. "Saturday. That's short notice, but I think I can clear my schedule," Carter managed to say. "Excellent. We look forward to seeing you, Mr. Davis. Don't disappoint us." The line went dead. Carter put his head in his hands. 25 grand. He didn't have it. He opened his banking app, staring at the number in his savings account. $4,200. Desperation clawed at him. He couldn't lose this deal. He thought of Isabella. Poor boring Isabella. She was probably sitting in her cramped apartment in Queens right now, knitting a scarf, eating ramen. She had no idea what this kind of pressure felt like. She had it easy. He made a decision. He logged into the company's expense account system. As a VP, he had a discretionary fund for client acquisition. It was strictly monitored, and using it for personal gain was immediate grounds for termination and potential jail time. "It's not personal," he reasoned, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's for the Orion deal. It's an investment. I'll pay it back as soon as the bonus hits." With trembling fingers, he transferred $30,000 to his personal account. He bought the table. He bought a new tuxedo. He bought Chloe a gown that cost more than his first car. He was all in. He was going to the ball, he was going to sign the deal, and he was going to prove to everyone, especially the ghost of his ex-wife, that he was a winner. He had no idea that the board of directors Graves mentioned answered to a chairwoman who knew exactly how much a Honda Civic cost to repair and how to stretch a pot of chili for 3 days. The Pierre Hotel was transformed. The ballroom was a sea of shimmering silk-black tuxedos and enough diamonds to clear the national debt of a small country. The theme was deep blue, and the lighting was a soft oceanic azure that made everyone look ethereal. Carter stood near the entrance, a glass of champagne in his hand, trying to look like he belonged. Chloe was on his arm, preening for the photographers, though none of them were actually taking her picture. They were waiting for the A-listers, the senators, the tech moguls, the Hollywood royalty. "This is it, babe," Chloe whispered loudly. "Look, there's the CEO of Goldman Sachs. We should go say hi." "Not now, Chloe," Carter hissed, scanning the room for Alistair Graves. "I'm here for business. I need to find the Orion group." He spotted Graves near the stage talking to a group of severe-looking men. Carter straightened his bow tie and marched over, dragging Chloe with him. "Alistair!" Carter beamed, extending a hand. "Wonderful event. Truly spectacular." Graves turned his expression mild. "Ah, Mr. Davis, you made it. And this must be—" "Chloe," she interjected, flashing a practiced smile. "Carter's better half." Graves's eyes flickered over her with a hint of amusement. "Charmed. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. The chairwoman is quite strict about punctuality." "The chairwoman?" Carter asked. "I thought Orion was run by a board." "It is," Graves said, checking his pocket watch. "But Orion is just a subsidiary. The parent company, Giada Global, is family-owned. The matriarch passed away last year, and her granddaughter has finally stepped out of the shadows to take the helm. Tonight is her inauguration, in a sense." Carter nodded, feigning interest. "Giada Global, huge shipping conglomerate. Didn't realize they were behind this." "They own—" "A lot of things," Graves said cryptically. "Enjoy the speech, Mr. Davis. Our deal depends on her approval." The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. A spotlight hit the podium on the stage. An announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please welcome the president of the Aurora Foundation and the new chairwoman of Giada Global, Ms. Isabella Giada." Carter froze. He blinked, sure he had misheard. Isabella common name, Giada coincidence. Then the curtain parted. The woman who walked onto the stage took the air out of the room. She was wearing a gown of midnight blue velvet that hugged her figure, cascading down to the floor like a waterfall. Around her neck sat the Giada sapphire, a gemstone the size of a quail's egg surrounded by diamonds. She was radiant. She was powerful. She was terrifyingly beautiful. And she was his ex-wife. Carter dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing in the silence. But no one looked at him. All eyes were on her. "Good evening," Isabella said into the microphone. Her voice was the same, that soft, melodic alto, but it carried a weight he had never heard before. "Thank you all for coming. Tonight is about legacy. It's about what we leave behind, and what we choose to build from the wreckage." Carter couldn't breathe. His legs felt like jelly. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. That's Izzy," he whispered. Chloe looked at him confused. "Who, the billionaire? You know her." "That's my ex-wife." Carter croaked his face, draining of color. Chloe laughed, a sharp, barking laugh. "Yeah, right, Carter. And I'm the Queen of England. You said your ex was a frumpy librarian who shopped at Target." "It's her," Carter insisted, his voice rising in panic. "It's Isabella. Oh my God, she's a Giada." On stage, Isabella continued her gaze, sweeping the room. She spoke of conservation of responsibility, of the future of global trade. She was articulate, commanding, witty. The room hung on her every word. Then she paused. Her eyes, magnified on the giant screens behind her, seemed to lock onto a specific point in the darkness. "Sometimes," Isabella said, a small, cryptic smile playing on her lips, "we underestimate the quiet ones. We mistake silence for weakness. But the ocean is silent right before a tsunami. We must be careful who we discard, for we never know when the tide will turn." She looked directly at table 14. Carter's table. For a second, just one terrifying second, their eyes met across the ballroom. There was no love in her gaze, no hate, just a cold, clinical recognition, like a scientist looking at a bug under a microscope. The applause was thunderous as she finished. The room erupted. "Carter, you're hurting my arm," Chloe snapped, pulling away. "What is wrong with you?" I need a drink," Carter stammered. He turned to flee towards the bar, anywhere to get away from that gaze. But his path was blocked. Two large men with earpieces stepped in front of him. Behind them stood Alistair Graves. "Mr. Davis." Graves said, his voice no longer warm. "Going somewhere, the chairwoman has requested your presence in the VIP suite immediately following the ceremony." I can't," Carter said, sweating profusely. "I'm not feeling well." "It wasn't a request, Mr. Davis," Graves said, stepping closer. "It's about the Orion deal and other matters, specifically some irregularities our audit team just flagged regarding your company's accounts. It seems you used a corporate card to purchase a table tonight, a table at our event." Carter's blood ran cold. "She knows," Carter whispered. "She knows everything, Mr. Davis," Graves replied. "Right this way." The VIP suite on the top floor of the Pierre Hotel was larger than Carter's entire penthouse. It smelled of lilies and ozone. The walls were lined with silk, and the panoramic window offered a view of the city that made the people down below look like ants. Carter was shoved gently but firmly into the room by the security detail. Alistair Graves followed, closing the heavy double doors with a final ominous click. Isabella was sitting on a velvet chaise lounge, having replaced her heels with plush hotel slippers. She was sipping a cup of herbal tea, looking bored. She didn't look up when he entered. "Isabella." Carter breathed, his voice trembling. He took a step forward, his instincts screaming at him to charm her, to beg to do something. "Izzy, please." "What is going on?" She finally looked at him. Her gaze was devoid of the warmth he remembered. It was like looking into a mirror made of ice. "Sit," she said. It wasn't a suggestion. Carter collapsed into the armchair opposite her. "I don't understand. The Giada shipping dynasty. You lived in a walk-up in Queens. We clipped coupons. You drove a 2008 Honda. I lived the life I chose." "Carter," she said, calmly setting her tea down. "My grandmother's will was specific. I was to receive my inheritance only when I turned 35, or if I divorced a husband who proved himself unworthy of the Giada legacy. Someone who loved me for my money or left me for lack of it." Carter felt the blood drain from his face. You tested me." "Life tested you, Carter. I just graded the paper." She stood up and walked over to a sideboard, pouring a glass of water. "I wanted to know if you loved me. Just Isabella, the girl who liked knitting and reading. For 7 years I thought maybe you did. I was ready to give it all up for you. I was ready to reject the trust fund to stay your wife." She turned her eyes flashing. "And then you left me for a receptionist because you got a promotion and thought you were too good for a boring wife. You didn't just fail the test, Carter. You ripped it up and spat on it." "I made a mistake," Carter pleaded, leaning forward. "Izzy, baby, I was confused. The stress of the new job. Chloe meant nothing. She's just a fling. We can fix this. I'm still your husband." "Ex-husband," she corrected sharply. "And don't you dare insult my intelligence by pretending you want me back. You want this." She gestured to the room, the diamonds, the invisible aura of billions. "You want the Giada fortune." "No, I love you," Carter lied, desperate. Isabella laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "Carter, you are currently wearing a tuxedo you bought with embezzled company funds. Do you really think I don't know who you are?" Carter froze. "What?" Alistair Graves stepped forward, opening a folder. "The $30,000 you transferred from the Stratton Oakmont Client Acquisition Fund to pay for your table tonight. We flagged it. Since Giada Global is the parent company of the bank, Stratton uses the transaction, triggered an immediate fraud alert in our system." "It was a loan," Carter stammered, sweat pouring down his neck. "I was going to pay it back with the Orion bonus." "The Orion bonus." Isabella raised an eyebrow. There is no Orion bonus, Carter. There is no deal. Did you really think I would let my company sign a logistics contract with a man who cheats on his wife and steals from his employer? She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. I am the client, Carter. I am the bank. I am the landlord. And you're just a liability I'm writing off. The silence inside the VIP suite was heavier than the humid air outside. It was a pressurized silence, the kind that exists in the deep ocean, right before a submarine hull buckles. Carter stood in the center of the Persian rug, his hands trembling by his sides. The room was a masterclass in intimidation. Gold leaf molding velvet drapes the color of dried blood, and a panoramic view of the Manhattan skyline that he had so desperately wanted to conquer. Now, looking at it, the city lights just looked like millions of indifferent eyes staring back at him. Isabella sat on a high-backed chair that looked suspiciously like a throne. She wasn't angry. That was the terrifying part. If she had been screaming, throwing vases, or crying, Carter would have known how to handle her. He could manipulate emotion. But this absolute cryogenic indifference, he had no defense against it. Isabella. Carter started, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat, trying to summon the smooth executive baritone that had won him the regional VP role. Izzy, look, I know this looks bad. The divorce, the distance. But you have to understand the pressure I was under. I did it for us. I wanted to build a life that you deserved. Isabella picked up a crystal tumbler of water, took a slow sip and set it down with a soft clink that echoed like a gunshot. For us, she repeated, her voice mild. Carter, you filed for divorce over an appetizer at Le Bernardin. You told me I was boring and plain. You gave me $20,000 and told me to get out of your apartment. Do not insult my intelligence by rewriting history while the ink is still drying on your eviction notice. Carter flinched. Eviction? What are you talking about? Alistair Graves, who had been standing silently in the corner, like a funeral director, stepped forward. He held a tablet in his hand, the screen glowing with columns of red numbers. Mr. Davis. Graves began, his tone clinically polite. Let's review your current standing. The penthouse you currently occupy on the Upper East Side. The building was purchased by Giada Real Estate Holdings 3 weeks ago. We reviewed the tenant list. We found that the leaseholder you was in violation of several clauses regarding financial solvency. I pay my rent, Carter shouted, sweat beading on his forehead. Not with your own money, Graves corrected. You've been paying it with credit cards that are currently over their limit. And speaking of credit, let's discuss the $30,000 you charged to the Stratton Oakmont corporate account tonight. Carter felt the blood drain from his legs. That was a clerical error. I was going to reimburse the company tomorrow. It wasn't an error, Carter. It was embezzlement, Isabella said, standing up. She walked toward him, the train of her midnight blue gown trailing behind her like a shadow. And because Stratton Oakmont banks with Giada Financial, the moment you swiped that card for a personal expense, a table at my gala, the fraud algorithms flagged it. It triggered an immediate audit. She stopped 3 feet from him, close enough for him to smell her perfume, a custom blend of jasmine and rain, vastly more expensive than the cloying scent Chloe wore. I didn't just buy the building, Carter, Isabella whispered. I bought the debt. I own your mortgage on that ridiculous house in the Hamptons. I own the lease on your car. I own the credit debt you racked up buying designer bags for your mistress. I own it all. You tracked me, Carter gasped. I audited you, she corrected. And you failed. My grandmother's will was very specific, Carter. The Giada fortune is protected by a character clause. If I married a man who proved himself to be a fortune hunter, or if I divorced a man who left me because I appeared poor, the truster would vest immediately to protect me. You didn't just break my heart, Carter. You unlocked my inheritance. Carter fell back into a chair, his legs giving out. So it was a test. The last 7 years. The coupons. The Honda. You were testing me. No, Isabella said, looking down at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. I was living. I wanted a real life. I wanted to know if a man could love Isabella, the person, not Isabella Giada, the brand. I was happy, Carter. I loved our little life. You were the one who decided it wasn't enough. You were the one who needed to show off. The door to the suite burst open, shattering the tension. It wasn't the police yet. It was Chloe. She looked frantic, her blonde hair disheveled, her mascara smudged. She had evidently been stopped by security downstairs and had fought her way up, desperate to be part of the VIP circle. "Carter!" she shrieked, storming in her heels, clicking rapidly on the parquet floor. "What is going on? They wouldn't let me in. They said your credentials were revoked. Do you know how embarrassing that is?" She stopped dead when she saw Isabella, the woman she had mocked, the woman she had called a dowdy librarian. Isabella stood there, radiating power, looking like a goddess of vengeance. Chloe looked at Carter, slumped in the chair, sweating and pale. Then she looked at Alistair Graves, holding the tablet of doom. "What's happening?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling. "Mr. Davis is being arrested," Graves said simply, "for corporate theft and fraud. He is currently insolvent. The bank has foreclosed on his properties and his employment has been terminated." Chloe's eyes went wide. The calculation happened instantly behind her eyes. The Hamptons house gone. The shopping sprees gone. The status gone. She turned to Carter. "You're broke." "Chloe, baby, it's a temporary setback," Carter pleaded, reaching out a hand. "I just need a lawyer. We can fight this. I love you." "You love this," Chloe screamed, gesturing to the room to the lifestyle. "You lied to me. You said you were a partner. You said you were rich. You bought me a Cartier bracelet with stolen money." She ripped the bracelet off her wrist and threw it at him. It hit his chest and bounced onto the floor. "I'm not going to jail for you, Carter," she spat, "and I'm certainly not visiting you there." She turned to Isabella. "Ms. Giada, I had no idea. He told me he was the one who left you. He told me you were holding him back." "He told us both a lot of things," Isabella said coldly. "You can go. But take a piece of advice next time. Check the bank statements before you steal a husband." Chloe fled the room without looking back. The silence returned, but now it was the silence of a tomb. Carter was alone. Truly alone. "Izzy," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please, I'll sign anything. I'll leave the state. Just don't let them take me. Please don't let me go to prison." Isabella walked to the window and looked out at the city. She didn't turn around. "You wanted to be a big man, Carter," she said softly. "You wanted the high stakes. Well, this is what happens when you play the high stakes and lose. You don't get a participation trophy." She nodded to Graves. Graves pressed a button on his phone. The double doors opened again. This time it was 2 uniformed NYPD officers and a detective in a cheap suit. "Carter Davis?" the detective asked. Carter couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. "Stand up, son," the detective said, pulling him out of the velvet chair. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the loudest thing in the world. Click, click, click. As they dragged him toward the door, Carter twisted his body around, desperate for one last look at her. Isabella. Look at me. I was your husband." She didn't turn. She didn't flinch. She just kept looking out the window, watching the rain begin to fall over the city she now owned. "Get him out of here," Graves ordered. The doors closed, cutting off Carter's sobbing. Isabella finally turned away from the window. She looked at the empty chair where Carter had sat. She picked up her phone and dialed her legal team. "It's done," she said, her voice steady. "Liquidate his remaining assets. Sell the furniture, the clothes, the watch, everything." "And the proceeds, Ms. Giada?" the lawyer on the other end asked. "Where should we deposit the funds?" "Donate it," she said, "to the Second Chance Literacy Program in Queens, the one down the street from our old apartment. Put it in his name. Let that be his legacy." She hung up the phone and walked out of the suite, leaving the ghost of Carter Davis behind in the empty, silent room. The destruction of Carter Davis did not happen all at once. It was a slow, agonizing slide that stripped away his dignity layer by layer, like paint peeling off a rotting wall. It began in the courtroom of the Southern District of New York, 3 months after the night at the Pierre Hotel. The room was cold, smelling of floor wax and stale anxiety. Carter sat at the defense table, not in his Armani suit, but in a generic, ill-fitting grey blazer, provided by his public defender, a harried man named Mr. Henderson, who had barely looked him in the eye since they met. The gallery was empty. There were no friends, no colleagues from Stratton Oakmont, and certainly no Chloe. The moment the handcuffs had gone on, she had evaporated, blocking his number and deleting every photo of them from her Instagram. He was a ghost to her now, a glitch in her personal brand that she had corrected. "Mr. Davis," Judge Beverly Thorne said, peering over her spectacles, "you stand convicted of grand larceny in the 2nd degree and corporate fraud. You abused your position of trust to embezzle funds for personal vanity. You attempted to defraud a major financial institution. Do you have anything to say?" Carter stood up. His hands were shaking so badly he had to grip the table. He looked for Isabella. He had scanned the back of the room 100 times, hoping, praying she would be there. Maybe she would see him and feel a flicker of pity. Maybe she would remember the nights they ordered Thai food and watched movies. Maybe she would realize this punishment was too harsh. But the Giada seat was empty. A junior associate from Pennyworth and Associates sat in the back row, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. That was it. Isabella hadn't even bothered to show up to watch him burn. Her absence hurt more than her anger ever could have. It was the ultimate insult. He wasn't even worth her time. I just wanted to be successful. Your Honor," Carter stammered, his voice cracking. "I got caught up. I made a mistake." "Greed is not a mistake." "Mr. Davis," the judge replied, banging her gavel. "It is a character flaw. I sentence you to 36 months in a state correctional facility, followed by 5 years of probation. You are also ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $30,000. Next case." The sound of the gavel was the end of Carter's life as he knew it. The next 18 months were a grey blur of concrete and regret. Carter served his time at the bare minimum security facility in Otisville, but it was still prison. The regional VP, who had dined at Le Bernardin, was now scrubbing cafeteria trays for 12 cents an hour. The nights were the hardest. In the dark, stripped of his phone, his social media, and his ego, Carter was forced to replay the last 7 years of his life. He replayed the moment he handed Isabella the divorce papers. He remembered the look on her face, not devastated, just disappointed. He remembered how she had asked, "Is this what you really want?" He had thought she was weak. He realized now, staring at the ceiling of his cell, that she had been holding back an ocean. She could have crushed him in that restaurant. She could have revealed her identity and laughed in his face. But she hadn't. She had let him walk away. She had given him the rope, just as she said. He wrote to her. God, he wrote to her. Long rambling letters on lined paper, apologizing, begging, trying to charm her one last time. Izzy, I know I messed up, but remember the trip to Cape Cod. Remember how we promised to always be a team. I've changed. I see the truth now. Please, just one visit. I need to see you. Every single letter came back 3 weeks later. Unopened, stamped in red ink, refused by addressee. She wasn't reading them. She wasn't agonizing over him. She wasn't sitting in her billion-dollar estate crying over his handwriting. She simply didn't care. He was as relevant to her as a telemarketer or a piece of junk mail. That silence broke him more than the prison guards ever could. Release day came on a Tuesday in November. It was raining a cold, biting sleet that stung the skin. Carter walked out of the processing center with a plastic bag containing his belongings, a cheap watch, a wallet with no money, and the clothes he had been arrested in, which now hung loosely on his frame. He had lost 20 pounds. His hair was thinning. He looked 10 years older. There was no limo waiting, no friends. He took a bus back to the city, the engine grinding and wheezing the whole way. He had nowhere to go. His parents in Ohio had stopped speaking to him after the news of the embezzlement shamed the family name. He ended up in a halfway house in the Bronx, sharing a room with a guy named Miller who snored like a chainsaw. The smell of the place, mildew, bleach, and despair clung to his pores. Getting a job was a nightmare. He had an MBA, but he also had a felony record for financial fraud. That was the kiss of death in the corporate world. He applied for logistics jobs, office manager roles, even entry-level data entry. The interviews were humiliating. Mr. Davis, a 24-year-old HR manager, said, looking at his background check on her screen, "It says here you were convicted of stealing from your employer. Why should we trust you with our inventory? I've paid my debt to society," Carter said, trying to summon his old charm, but it came out desperate and oily. "I'm a hard worker. I just need a second chance. We'll keep your resume on file," she said, not looking up. He never got a call back. By January, the reality had set in. The only job he could get, the only place that didn't run a background check deeper than a surface scratch, was a gig economy delivery service. Speedy Eats. So the man who used to scream at waiters if his sparkling water wasn't chilled enough was now biking through the slush of New York City, delivering lukewarm pad thai to people who lived the life he used to have. It was a Friday night when the final blow landed. A code red storm warning was in effect. The wind was howling through the avenues, turning umbrellas inside out. Carter's phone pinged. A high priority order. A massive sushi platter from Nobu going to a penthouse on 57th Street. The payout was $50, including the tip. He couldn't say no. He needed the money for rent at the halfway house. He pedaled against the wind, his legs burning. The rain soaked through his cheap windbreaker, chilling him to the bone. He arrived at the building, the Billionaire's Row Tower. It was a needle-thin skyscraper that pierced the clouds. He knew this building. He had looked at a condo here once with Chloe, back when he was deluding himself that he could afford it. He trudged into the lobby, dripping wet. The marble floors were polished to a mirror shine. The air smelled of expensive lilies. "Delivery for the penthouse," Carter muttered to the concierge, wiping rain from his eyes. "Service elevator," the concierge said, without looking up. "And don't drip on the carpet." Carter took the service elevator up to the 91st floor. His heart was pounding. Who ordered $500 worth of sushi in a storm like this? The elevator doors opened into a private vestibule. He rang the bell. The door didn't open. Instead, a voice came through the intercom. A woman's voice. Smooth, cultured, familiar. Just leave it at the door, please. Carter froze. He knew that voice. It was the voice that used to whisper good night to him. It was the voice that had read poetry to him on Sundays. Isabella, he whispered, staring at the camera lens mounted by the door. There was a long silence. Then the intercom clicked again. Leave the food, Carter. She knew. She had seen him on the camera. She saw the wet, shivering man in the neon vest, holding a bag of sushi. Izzy, please, Carter choked out, leaning against the doorframe. Please open the door. I just want to talk. Look at me. I've lost everything. I'm delivering food in a storm. Isn't this enough? Haven't I paid enough? You were paid for the delivery, weren't you? Her voice came back, cool and detached. The tip is included in the app. Goodbye. Izzy, he shouted, banging his fist on the heavy wood. I'm sorry I left you. I'm sorry I didn't see you. Just 5 minutes. Please. The intercom light went off. She had cut the connection. He stood there for a full minute, listening to the silence on the other side of the door. He imagined her inside. She was probably wearing cashmere. She was probably sitting by a fire, looking out at the storm, from 90 stories up, completely safe, completely untouchable. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was just done. He was the help. He was the delivery boy. He was a transaction. Slowly, Carter set the bag of sushi down on the doormat. He turned and walked back to the service elevator, pressing the button with a trembling finger. As he exited the building and got back on his bike, the massive screens in Times Square flickered in the distance. He looked up, wiping rain and tears from his face. There, on the giant digital billboard, was a new ad campaign for Giada Global. It was a black and white photo of Isabella looking powerful and serene, staring out over the ocean. The text across the screen read simply, "The future belongs to those who build it." Carter looked at the billboard, then down at his rusted bicycle chain. The drama was over. There were no more twists. This wasn't a movie where the hero gets a redemption arc. This was real life. He had gambled his queen for a pair of twos, and he had lost the game. He pushed off the curb, pedaling into the dark, wet traffic of the city that didn't care about him anymore. The wind howled, drowning out his sob, and the city lights blurred into streaks of gold that he could never, ever touch again. Carter's story is a brutal reminder that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes it's just artificial turf, painted to look pretty. He traded a woman of substance, loyalty, and hidden power for a fleeting illusion of status, only to realize too late that he was the one who was empty. Isabella's revenge wasn't screaming, fighting, or slashing tires. It was the most powerful revenge of all absolute success and total indifference. She let him destroy himself with the very rope he demanded she give him. In the end, Carter didn't lose because he was unlucky. He lost because he couldn't see the value of what he already held in his hands. If this story gave you chills, you are not alone. It's a terrifying lesson in karma and the power of silence. What would you have done if you were Isabella? Would you have warned him, or would you have let him fall into his own trap? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories about real-life karma betrayal and the sweetest revenge, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a part. Remember, sometimes the quietest people hold the loudest power. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.